My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila. Today is Monday, May the 26th, 2025, and what follows is another of Jason Gray's writings entitled, They Do Not Ban Hate Speech, They Ban Speech They Hate. There was a time when the concept of free speech was sacred, an unshakable pillar of Western civilization. It was the great equalizer, the foundation upon which ideas could be debated, challenged, and refined. It was never about comfort, it was about truth. Today, that principle is under siege, not by a foreign enemy, but by those who claim to be its protectors. The modern censorship regime does not exist to fight, quote, hate speech. It exists to fight speech they hate. Beneath this battle lies something deeper, something ancient. This war against truth is not new. It is the same war that has raged throughout history. A war against knowledge itself. The Hermetic teachings tell us that, quote, the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding, end quote. Knowledge has always been guarded, hidden, and suppressed by those who seek power. In the digital age, we are seeing a new form of this age-old suppression, one designed not just to erase ideas, but to erase the very capacity to think. The myth of, quote, hate speech. The phrase hate speech has become a weapon, wielded with precision against those who dare to dissent. What does it actually mean? The term is intentionally vague, an ever-shifting definition that expands or contracts depending on who is speaking. If hate speech were a fixed and objective concept, then it would be applied evenly across the political and ideological spectrum. That is not what happens. A left-wing activist can openly call for the death of political opponents and suffer no consequences. A major news outlet can publish an op-ed about the necessity of, quote, abolishing whiteness, and it remains online without issue. If a conservative questions the wisdom of mass migration, if a journalist exposes corruption in government, if a scientist challenges climate change orthodoxy or the narrative on gender ideology, then suddenly the full force of censorship is unleashed. Accounts are suspended, voices are silenced, lives are ruined. Now, I'm a nobody, but even I was censored, okay? A grandma who was just issuing her own opinion about things. So interesting that, wouldn't you say? So I'm going to read that again. Accounts are suspended, voices are silenced, lives are ruined. It is not about preventing harm. It is about preventing resistance. This is the classic Hermetic principle of polarity at play. We are not witnessing a fair and just suppression of all hate. We are witnessing the weaponization of polarity itself. The suppression of one set of ideas is designed to amplify another. They are not distinguishing hate, they are harnessing it, redirecting it, and using it as a tool. Those who claim to be eradicating hatred are, in fact, fueling it in the direction that serves them. The architects of silence. Big tech, corporation media, and governments have formed an unholy alliance to determine which voices are allowed and which must be erased. They hide behind the illusion of private enterprise, claiming that companies have the right to regulate their platforms. And this is what happened to me personally. The moment these platforms gain power over public discourse, they become something far more insidious. When a handful of unelected billionaires control what billions of people can see and say, that is no longer free enterprise. That is information warfare. Look no further than the coordinated takedown of dissenting figures. When alternative news sources begin gaining traction, they are accused of, quote, disinformation and buried by algorithms. And again, you don't have to be all that large. Conscious Conversation Central had only 2,000 subscribers. I had over 1,500 videos, but only 2,000 subscribers, and not as many views as one might think, unless I was being shadow banned and they were trying to dissuade me from continuing by making it look like I didn't have anybody paying attention. I don't know, have no clue, but I like what he's saying here because it certainly rings true. When a new social media platform arises that refuses to censor its users, it is deplatformed, smeared, or financially strangled. They claim they are protecting society from, quote, dangerous ideas. But the real danger is their monopolization of truth itself. The most effective tyrannies are not enforced at gunpoint. They are enforced through fear of speaking. The modern enforcers of speech control no longer need to burn books when they can simply delete them. They do not need to imprison people for their beliefs when they can make them unemployable. They do not need to announce censorship when they can shadow ban, demonetize, and manipulate algorithms so that dissent disappears quietly. This is the principle of mentalism, the first Hermetic law. Quote, the all is mind. Those who control speech control thought, and those who control thought control reality itself. It is no longer about facts. It is about shaping perception. They are not just banning words. They are reshaping the very fabric of reality to suit their own vision. Why this matters. Free speech was never about allowing the comfortable to speak. It was about protecting the uncomfortable. It was about defending those who challenge the status quo, not those who enforce it. Very people who once championed free expression, academics, journalists, civil rights activists, have now become its most eager executioners. They do not want discussion, they want obedience. They do not seek debate, They seek submission. What happens when dissent is silenced? What happens when truth becomes a casualty of censorship? History has already answered this question. Every dystopian nightmare from Orwell's 1984 to the darkest moments of human history begins with the suppression of speech. When you tell a society what it can and cannot say, you control what it can and cannot think. When you control thought, you control everything. Hermeticism teaches us that reality is fluid, shaped by consciousness. If enough people believe a lie, that lie becomes reality. This is what they are doing. They are not just censoring speech. They are shaping the collective consciousness itself. They are forging a world where certain ideas are literally unthinkable. When ideas become unthinkable, so too does freedom. We have reached a point where silence is complicity. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect reminds us that nothing happens by accident. Every act of censorship is a deliberate move toward control. The suppression of one idea is always the amplification of another. If we do not recognize this now, we may soon wake up in a world where the very concept of free thought has been erased. The path forward. The only solution is defiance. We must refuse to accept the lie that speech must be policed for our own good. We must challenge the notion that words are violence and recognize that real violence begins when words are no longer allowed. The moment we accept that some ideas are too dangerous to be spoken, we open the door to tyranny. Hermetic wisdom tells us that as above, so below. The macrocosm of censorship reflects the microcosm of individual submission. Every time a person self-censors out of fear, the system grows stronger. Every time we remain silent when we should speak, we give power to the forces that seek to enslave us. The battle for free speech is not just a political struggle. It is a spiritual one. It is a battle for the soul of humanity itself. They claim they are banning hate speech, but that is a lie. They are banning speech that threatens their power. If we do not fight back, they will ban the last thing standing between us and oppression, the truth itself. Once truth is lost, only darkness remains. Well, I could not agree more. The thing of it is, when one really looks into it for oneself, who appointed anybody out there the arbiter of what people can say and what they can't say? And who decided that anybody is not smart enough to have an opinion of their own? And who doesn't get it that everybody has? It's just like buttholes. Everybody's got an opinion. And they got their right to it, to be honest. And so it doesn't really matter what anybody's opinion is. but everyone should be allowed to speak about it. We're all smart enough to make up our own minds. And that is the other thing for me, is that by arbitrarily deciding what can be heard and what cannot, what they're actually telling you is you ain't smart enough to know this, that, or the other. It's very rude. And it's very condescending to the human race as a whole. At any rate, thank you once again, Jason, for your words here. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you. It is just a matter of your perspective and your perception on your perspective. And until we meet again, be well, my friends. Mwah.